Everybody. I'm Bob Surridge, and I'm gonna be your tour guide on this virtual tour of the Fort Johnston Museum and Visitor Center. The museum itself is located in the Garrison building, and that building was built in 1810. Fort Johnston was established. Well, it was actually declared that it was completed in 1749. There's some people who actually saw it in 1749, did not think it was much of a fort, but that's the official starting date. Fort Johnston is named after colonial Governor Gabriel Johnston. The fort was in continuous use as a military or government facility from the year 1749 to 2006. From the mid-30s to 2005 or so, the garrison was used as a residence. First, a residence for the keeper of the Cape Fear Lights and his family, and that keeper was Franto Malachek the second, and his granddaughter Debbie. I saw you out there with us, and we'll talk a little bit more about him and the Malachek family later. And then beginning in the mid-1950s, the building was used as the residence of the commanders and their families of Sunny Point. Our immediate past president, Don Parker, and his wife, Debbie, were privileged to have the garrison as a residence when he was the commander at Sunny Point. So that's where we are. As you would have walked into Fort Johnston, you would have traveled or walked on the brick walkway that we have, and these are commemorative bricks. And I've kind of listed the different ways and what you can use those bricks, maybe to give a shout out to a hero like Susie, Carson, or different life moments. The one you see there is Bob and Carol Surridge, beach buddies. That's commemorating when my wife Carol and I met when we were 12 years old on the beach and at the Jersey Shore. So there's a whole list of ways that those bricks can be used, and it can be fun, of course, very serious, and also very serious when you memorialize a loved one with a brick. So that's our brick walkway. However, I'm going to start the tour at the back, in the back room of the museum. Our back room is called the Susie Carson Research Room. So we're going to start here at the research room, and then we'll work our way back out to the front door. Right? The society is really a tenant in the garrison. However, we have just a fantastic relationship with the city staff, Sharon Venus, Lisa Anderson, and Randy Jones. So we really work hand in glove together to put exhibits to develop exhibits and keep the museum fresh with new ideas. The research room is named after Miss Susie Carson, who was a co-founder with Eleanor Smith of the Historical Society, and that was in 1976. I was just looking the other day at the list of the 43 founding members of the Historical Society. I can only really remember hearing Miss Susie speak one time, and that was in the early mid 2005 or 6 in that area. But really, for the past several years, since I've been involved in the research room and in the Historical Society, Susie talks to me quite often. You can hear her through the newsletter articles that she wrote, and I have to tell you that I can feel her, maybe not hear her, but I can feel her saying that we we need to do more. We need to do more. We need more volunteers to accomplish all that Susie wants us to do. I bet if Pat Kirkman's out there, she can actually hear Susie saying that. The photos on the award wall are all in recognition of Miss Susie's history-related contributions to the Southport community. Susie wrote three books. She wrote Joshua's Dream, which is really a comprehensive history of Smithville and Southport. Joshua's Legacy, which is full of short bios of leaders of Smithville and Southport over the decades. And then the third book was about her mother, about Susie's mother, Leela Jane. Also, for 10 years, Susie did a weekly column with the Star News. That column was called Bit of History. And then you add to those three books, the column, the newsletters articles that she wrote, the speeches that she made. Susie collected a ton of materials. And in those 5 filing cabinets, plus 2 more that are in the research room, we have organized and stored Susie's materials. And it's really quite, I think, quite a tribute to her. Probably took us a couple years to get things organized and the files in folders and everything kind of set up. We did realize, however, that we weren't going to be able to serve as a library. We just didn't have the capacity or volunteer staffing to keep someone in the research room 8 hours a day, actually the museum was open 7 days a week. So what we did is we put most of Susie's treasures online, where they are now available to Southport history lovers who are both close by and those that are far away. So we created the Susie Carson Research Room online research and study collections. Let me say though, if you don't want to either do research or study, you still want to go onto that service, because it is a great way to spend a couple hours browsing through all the photographs and way it was columns and just a different trove of treasures that are in the research room. Let me point out a couple. The listing is of the items that are.
Excuse me, Bob.
Yeah.
Pat Tucker raised her hand. I don't know. Pat, did you have a question? Or was that accidental? Let me try unmuting her.
Okay.
I guess it was an accident. Okay, go ahead. Okay.
All right. So you see the listing of the collections in the online research room. Just mention a couple of those. Perhaps my favorite has always been the Way It Was columns from the Stateport Pilot. Pilot's been doing those columns since the mid-1960s, and if you do the 52 weeks a year times the number of years, you're probably getting now about 26 or 2,700 columns that they've done over the years. The Society, I'm going to estimate we have about 1,000 of those columns. They're just really, I think of it as they're giving us a magic carpet ride through the history of Southport. Another item that's on the list is the chronology of Southport. This was done by Society member Bill Reeves. It is a chronology that lists happenings in Southport or in the Southport area from 1560 to 1990. There's well over 30,000 entries in those chronologies. And we'll show you one of those entries later on during the presentation. The people files, for example, 330 30 plus folks from Atkins to Yaskell in the alphabet, and subject files, 260 folders from agriculture to World War II. So you get the idea, and I guarantee you'll enjoy yourself if you spend some time browsing through these files. Are all available to members, to students, teachers, actually to anyone. And if you can't access the files with the computer, please give us a call and we'll be glad to help you. Now, let's go to the exhibits, and I don't know how many of you have been in the museum, but it's just, this exhibit is kind of amazing to me. That is not a movie prop. That is the actual front of the Fullwood grocery store that sat for many years on Morse Street. And I believe, if I have the location right, that it sat right next to what is now the Ports of Call restaurant. And our friend Tommy Harrelson is out there. I want to ask Tommy if he'll share with us. Tell me, Tommy, why is that facade in such good condition? Take your mute off, Tom.
Oh, unmute. Okay. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes, sir.
Mr. Willie's store sat on House Street, and we don't, you know, where the Baptist building is, that fellowship building,
right,
would encompass that store plus some other little stores, including ours. What happened is, it was there. There were several shops, small shops like his store, a barber shop, and something else, and then a hardware store on the corner, which my father bought. And then eventually, Mr. Willie Fullwood, we turned it into a grocery store eventually. And Mr. Willie was still in business even while we were in business. This store, as small as it was very much like a lot of other they were all over Southport at one point, you know, in the little neighborhood stores. That's what that was. They were tiny little stores. And Mr. Willie was one of these people, just an amazingly, today you would think he was a modern man, because he provides such great customer service. He would actually go to people's houses. I don't think he had a phone in there. If he did, I don't know it. He would take his little car, a little two-seated car, drive to people's houses, write down their orders, come back to his store, and fill it as best he could, and then he'd come to our store sometimes and fill it from our product, our stock too. Drive it to their homes and charge it, and then go and collect at a certain time of the month, probably the first of the month. But that was the way he did business. He was a wonderful, wonderful old man. He's just as nice as he could be. He stayed in that. He was in business for a long time, and very well respected, very well loved. When we decided to expand, we took down the buildings, and that was such to me, an iconic looking building, that we asked Mr. David Watson, who had the house across the street, which is long gone, where the bank was, the car insurance company is now. He had a little garage over there, and we just picked this front off and walked it across the street, laid it flat in his garage on I guess, some sort of racks. And then when we were ready for it, we used that as the front to a wine shop within our store. So for many years, it sat inside the building. And so whenever it was decided to sell that building, I had it taken out, and then eventually gave it to the Southport Historical Society for use in the museum. And I'm so glad that Joni Shinsky took it upon herself to fix it up, and when Cindy and Joni were involved, they made it such a nice exhibit. So I'm very glad that it's been preserved, and I think his family is glad to see it, and it's a dear thing to me.
Tommy, that's great. I think it makes a great exhibit. I love telling people the story about Mr. Fullwood taking orders and then going and filling them. And One of the stories was too, that I've heard, is he didn't have the item. He'd purchase it from one of the other grocers just so to be able to fill the orders. Thank you for preserving that, and we'll be coming back to you in a few minutes when we talk about Art Newton and Lou Hardy. That's all right.
Sure.
Okay. I want to show you this next picture. If maybe you noticed that rotary phone on the left side of the store. All of our exhibits are appreciated, but this rotary phone is especially appreciated by the younger kids because they're just fascinated by it. How could that possibly be a telephone? And you can hear their wonderment as grandma or grandpa is telling them how you had to, it's a rotary phone, so you had to dial the number. So it's kind of interesting how something those of our age would think is fairly simple, but it's fascinating to the younger kids. Another favorite of the kids is this scavenger hunt. The hunt takes them through the museum for a search of the pictured artifacts. They then bring their completed form back to the counter in the visitor center, and they're given a prize, or they're asked to select a prize, which is a piece or couple pieces of beach glass from the visitor center store. This system, it works well, except when the mean old guy from the back room, that's me, changes in an exhibit and takes away one of the hunt items. Recently did that in the Fullwood store. I had taken out the Prince Albert can, and I kind of forgotten that I had it out, and I had unfortunately a young man who was really beside himself, that he could not find Prince Albert. I won't say that we all knew that Prince Albert was in the can, but that's what happened in that event. Okay. This room is right to the right of the Fullwood store. It's one of our newest exhibits, and it's depicting the life of the Malachek family when they lived in the garrison, while Franto Malachek was the keeper of the Cape Fear Lights. Debbie Malachek, who's with us today, did that was the first stop on the tour, was her presentation of the life in the garrison, and that video is available to everybody on our Facebook page. Thank you, Debbie. It was a great job, and I know there's been a number of people commenting on it and going back to the videos that are available. So thank you very much. Right next to the Malachek room, you can see the beautiful models of the one on the left is a model of the ironclad, the CSS Virginia, or depending on if you're north or south of the Mason-Dixon line, you might have learned that it was called the ship was called the Merrimack. So the CSS Virginia is on the left, and the Frying Pan Lightship is on the right hand side. Those two ships really have the best view in the museum, and it's good that they do. The CSS Virginia looks out towards Battery Island, where its sister ship, the ironclad, the CSS North Carolina, was sunk during the Civil War. Next to it, the Frying Pan Lightship has a little further to look, but when you look out that window between Bald Head Island and Oak Island and have a little of imagination, maybe a lot of imagination, you can see the spot 28 miles out in the Atlantic that the frying pan lightship was stationed at that spot. I want to give a special thanks to Cecil Frank, who donated these models to the society. They were created by his father, Lieutenant Colonel Herbert Frank, when he was living in Southport. Like this photo, the lightship, the frying pan lightship, was replaced by the frying pan shoals light tower. And this picture captures the changeover in, I believe, around 1964, where the lightship is being replaced by the light tower. The tower has not been replaced, but it's no longer used as a light tower. It is used as a bed and breakfast, and maybe one of the most exciting bed and breakfast locations in the world. It's accessible by boat or helicopter because it's a good 28 to 30 miles out in the Atlantic. Next exhibit is focused on women in the 20th century women in Southport, the early part of the 20th century. And like so many of our exhibits, it's loosely based on one of our publications, and that publication is Hominy Muffins and Oyster Pie. You can see sitting on top of the exhibit display cabinet. I want to show you one thing. I wish I had a better picture of it, but on the top shelf of the cabinet, towards the left-hand side, you can see on the far left a book, and then sitting next to it is sort of looks like a miniature trash can. That's actually a turtle egg duff mold, and it was used to make a cake-like dessert made of the yolks of sea turtle eggs and raisins, and baked in that duff mold. Of course, no longer are they serving this duff because the turtles are now protected. The bellows that are to the right of the mold were a gift of Brooks Newton Prick, and the bellows were used at her great aunt's in the Stewart House Inn. Liz did a presentation, I guess last week. It was a Tuesday talk about women in Southport, and the title was Like Mother, Like Daughter, and kind of a tribute to women for Mother's Day. And she spoke a lot about Kate Stewart and Jesse Stevens Taylor. And you can find all of that on the video that's available on our Facebook page. I wanted to share with you these three other ladies: Annie Mae Woodside, Cora Mabel Davis, and Anne Lou Newton. Annie Mae Woodside is a real leader in education. She was the first woman in North Carolina to become a school superintendent, and maybe one of the first in the country, first women in the country to become a school superintendent. Different things. She was the treasurer of the Baptist Church. She was a charter member in the Southport Historical Society, and she was head of the local Red Cross operation during World War II. In the middle, Cora Mabel Davis was also an educator. She was an elementary school teacher, and also, but music and singing was her passion, and she shared that as a singer, as a band leader with the entire community. She was a graduate of Brunswick County Training School and had a bachelor's degree in elementary education from Elizabeth State College. Very talented, and also, of course, a devoted member of her church, St. James AME Church. Miss Annie Lou, who is Brooks Pruitt's mother. Annie Lou was in charge of the Southport High School cafeteria. And some of you know that the Southport High School is really a combination of an elementary school, middle school, and high school. So you started going to the high school building when you were in first grade. So as the head of the cafeteria, Miss Annie Lou was really and the folks that worked with her were really the surrogate mothers for all the children, but I'm sure especially the younger children. And they did many things to improve or provide special treats for the children. They did a lot of fundraising. Miss Annie Lou would make sandwiches that she sold on court days when the court was in session, and then the proceeds from that she would use for the cafeteria. She was also the dietitian at Dozier Memorial Hospital. So these women, like many others, were all just remarkable gifts to the Southport community. And I do hope you take a look at Liz Fuller's presentation that I mentioned as well. Okay, this exhibit is really thanks to the work of Art Newton and Lou Hardy Jr. Really takes us back to Southport in the 1950s and 60s. With us today, we met Tommy Harrelson. I'm going to ask him to come back in, and also Juli Newton Ghiselin is with us, and Juli is Art Newton's youngest daughter. So if you guys would like to just take your microphones off mute and share with us your recollections and information that you would have about Art Newton, and also the display cabinet is full of actually models of landmarks in Southport history, and those models were created by Lou Hardy. And Lou was a professor emeritus of Wagner College in New York. He said that he may have been, his career was in New York, but his heart is in Southport, and where it always has been and will remain. So enough of me, let me ask Tommy and Juli to fill us in on some of the details.
Juli, you want me to start, or you want to start?
You can start, that'll be fine.
Over my head, if you see there's a picture of my dad's grocery store that was painted by Art Newton. And he sold it for, my dad, I think, for $12 or $15, something like that, back in 1950. Daddy had it for many years, and then I had it. And over time, I would display it in our place of business in downtown Southport. Over time, people would come in and say, "Do you like? I've got something of Art Newton's if you'd like to buy it." So I have a small collection, informal collection. And one day, Julie's mama called, and Valley called and said, "Tommy, I have some things of art you might be interested in." So I went by her house, and she had some beautiful detailed pencil drawings. And she sold me 4. We didn't know what they were valued at, and she gave me a price, and I doubled it because I didn't know, what they were valued at. So I didn't want to take advantage. So she was kind enough to let me have them. They were very detailed drawings, unusual. I think he did that early in life. He started painting, drawing, and he did detailed in my opinion, he did those detailed drawings to get all the perspectives so he could later go back and do a painting from them. Much later, as he got more confident, he did little sketches, and then he could just turn out watercolors like he was amazing, an amazing talent. I got this in my mind when we moved back to Southport. I displayed all what I had in our home, and the paintings and pictures started talking to me. I started thinking maybe some way of honoring Art's work, and so I got a hold of Juli and her brother, and they agreed to let me do the book. I had to have their permission. And then Juli was nice enough to write a letter to the editor asking people to send in to come to Ricky Evans' gallery to bring their paintings, and he would take them apart, copy them, and put them back together at no charge. If they needed other work, of course, he would get that business. So it was a combination of really a lot of cooperation from Juli and John, her brother, from Ricky and Debbie. And then I had to depend on Lou Hardy, who you talk about, and Brooks, who you mentioned. So they were good friends to help me along the way and hold my hand as I was my one and only book. That's how the book got started, and over time we were able to collect quite an assortment of books, of paintings and drawings that we could put and then Art's family, Valley and Juli, with all the trials and tribulations they had, they kept all of this stuff of Art's, their inventory, the sign-up sheets for art shows that he had right in that same building, or the community building, and so by that we could use those as kind of detective work to find paintings and find works, and to match up drawings with paintings. So it was an amazing thing that they kept all this stuff, and my hat's off to the Newton family for holding on to this so long, because without that wouldn't have been as good a book. So Art had a short life. He died in 1964, the year I graduated from Carolina, drowning accident at the foot of Atlantic Avenue, where they lived, and he lived just to be 41. But in that time, he did a huge body of work. Not only these paintings, but he's better known for photography. If you look at any photographs of that era in from the Stateport Pilot and some from the Star News, they were done by him, particularly the hurricane photographs. And also, he worked when television started up in Wilmington. It was homegrown. They didn't have it was not network TV, and they just did it themselves. And Art was the art director for early TV, so he designed and built the sets. So many things he did. He's just a jack of all trades, and his legacy is certainly secure in the work he did. And although he had a short life, it was in the arts and photography and other things, entertainment. It was very meaningful. Juli?
All right. Well, I was only 9 months old when Daddy died, so I never really knew him, but we did have a box that Mother kept of all of his things. Over the years, as I was growing up on a rainy day or whenever I was bored, I would drag out the box of all of the photographs and things that Dad had done and entertain myself for years with that. Not to mention growing up in town, I saw his paintings everywhere. They were in the library, in the courthouse, in restaurants, in friends' homes. So I think when I was in high school, the art gallery in the park did an exhibit. And that was the first time I had seen so many of my dad's paintings on display in one place. And it was just amazing. So when Tommy came to me wanting to do this, I was just so honored and amazed at how many paintings showed up from all over the country. And he really did a lot of work. Was the starving artist, I guess, because he did all that work, but we never had a whole lot to show for it. But he was talented, and I'm just very grateful for Tommy for putting the book together and for the opportunity I had to get to see so many of the paintings he has done. And they're still showing up today.
They sure are.
Well, thanks to both of you. Tommy, do you want to say a word or two about Lou?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. Lou was a few years older than me, but we grew up, he was closer to my sister's age than mine, but we grew up together part of the time in Southport. He was always interested in music, and he would put on plays at school. In fact, I was star of one of his plays. 17. I was age 16, but I played the part of a 17-year-old in that movie. And and Freddie Burdett was my body double. He was Dr. Burdett's son. And so I knew Lou, and he went on to Carolina. He was ahead of me at Carolina. But Lou was quite a talented man. He was a very accomplished musician, composer, artist, and photographer in his own right. He could do a little bit of everything, and a lot of it very, very well. And he really helped me a lot in putting together this book. I would send him a copy, and it would be awful, and he would send it back with all the criticism, and I would try to send it. It took several iterations before it suited him. So, but he was a big help to me, and a good friend, and a lot of fun, and just all around great guy. So Southport should be proud of him.
Well, Tommy, I have to add to that that he also helped me a great deal in this little book that I wrote, as you did, and I appreciate both Lou and you for the help you gave me with that project. Go to the next exhibit, and again, thank you, Tommy, and thank you, Juli. The next exhibit, and this is. You don't find this in many museums, except perhaps if they're a quilt museum. This is the Bicentennial Heritage Quilt, celebrating the 200th anniversary of Southport from 1792 to 1992. And as you can see, what it's depicting, the different landmarks in Southport. You can see Tommy Thompson's house. You can see the shrimp boats up in the upper left-hand corner. Whittler's bench is there, the pilot tower, and amuse you. This was done by the members of the Southport Historical Society. In addition to the quilt itself, there's a companion book that tells the story of each of those locations, and that book is titled Southport Secrets. This slide or photograph is just laying out the folks who were involved in creating the quilt. Again, all members of the society, and I just want to recognize two of our current members who helped in this, and that's Pauline and John Swain. Pauline not only worked on the quilt, but she was an officer in the Historical Society for many, many years. The then Society president, Don Johnston, was an accomplished artist, and he designed the quilt, and he also compiled the stories in the Southport Secrets. Many worker bees to be involved. Some of them gained a reputation. For example, you'll see Betty Arnold Hewitt was identified as an expert in the fine art of quilting and gabbing. And I think you can imagine over a project like that there was a lot of both quilting and gabbing done at that to get it complete. That's the bicentennial quilt. We're going to the next room now. This is the middle room, it was the kitchen of when the garrison was a residence. Of course, the first thing you see on this slide is the Caroon Crab Company sign. Caroon Crab Company, the long history in Southport of earning a living on the water. One of the largest purveyors of fresh crab in North Carolina and on the East Coast. Also like to point out below on the left-hand side of the picture, below the crab sign, there's a, looks like a small television. Well, that's a photo frame, and that's showing the way it was columns. And I probably have 400 or 500 of those columns on that photo frame. And I'm not the only crazy one in the world, because I'll stand there for quite a long time watching the frames go by, so I can read the captions. So again, I look at that as really a nice ride through Southport history. On the right is an exhibit honoring Christopher Columbus Morse, or CC, or Kit Morse as he was known, was one of the most successful blockade running river pilots in the Civil War. And I just want to recognize James Morse from Columbia, South Carolina, and Teresa Morse Shoemaker from Wilmington. Both, I believe they are both great grandchildren of C.C. Morse, but they are the artifacts that you see in the exhibit, they are loaning to the society. And we also have another special guest, and to tell the story of blockade running and the exploits of C.C. Morse. So congratulations are really in order to our next guest, who's Alexander Patterson. Alex is a South Brunswick High School student, and he recently placed first in the individual documentary category of the Southeast Regional National History Day competition. His video is about 10 minutes long, and you can watch that video, Blockade Runners of the Cape Fear. Again, that's available on our Facebook page. I'd also like to recognize, I think she's here today, Jennifer Bryant, who is Alex sponsoring teacher at South Brunswick. And of course, I want to recognize Mrs. Patterson and the family and friends who are joining us today. So Alex has agreed to join us and spend a few minutes explaining blockade running and some of the exploits of Christopher Columbus. Alex, if you unmute yourself, and we can look forward to hearing your thoughts.
So shortly after the Civil War started in 1861, the Union had to create a strategy of cutting off supply of the Confederacy. The United States came up with a strategy known as the Anaconda Plan. The Anaconda Plan was a plan to block off southern ports by the U.S. naval blockade to stop the supply of materials and to take control of the Mississippi River. This mitigated the flow of materials into the Confederacy and created isolation. Blockade runners brought materials and weapons into southern ports since they were able to run in between the Union blockade. They were able to do this because of the design of their ship and the geography of the area. Blockade runners would purchase the materials from a place like Bermuda or the Bahamas when it originally came from England. One of the most important places for the blockade runners to take the materials to was Wilmington. Wilmington was important since it had direct railroad access to Richmond. It was one of the only Confederate ports after 1864. Blockade runners also had an 80% success rate when entering Wilmington through the Cape Fear River. So when they entered the Cape Fear River to reach Wilmington during the 1860s, there were two ways to enter. The old inlet, which still exists today, is between Oak Island and Bald Head Island. And then the new inlet, which was closed off by the rocks in the 1870s, was between Federal Point and Bald Head Island. This was one of the best and most successful options for blockade runners. The blockade runners also made use of the Price's Creek lighthouses when entering the old inlet. Blockade runners were designed to be faster than the Union blockade and to be hidden. The long and narrow design of blockade runners allowed them to outrun the blockade. And its shallow draft allowed it to move swiftly through shallow waters. They were also painted gray to reduce their profile, and some even had collapsible smokestacks. They also used anthracite coal, which is a smokeless coal, which reduced their profile even more. Christopher Columbus Kit Morse is the blockade runner featured here. Morse served as a pilot to operate 3 of the most successful blockade runners, which were the Kate, Cornubia, and the Advance. He was born in Smithville in June 29, 1829. 3 of his siblings also ended up being pilots or captains on blockade runners. In 1853, he married Mary Virginia, also of Brunswick County, and they moved to Amelia Island, Florida, where he was a keeper of a lighthouse for a few years. Close to the start of the Civil War, he was an experienced Cape Fear bar pilot in Brunswick County. The first blockade runner he piloted was the Kate in 1862. The Kate was known for bringing the yellow fever into Wilmington. In August of 1862, the crew aboard the Kate were infected with the yellow fever when they reached Wilmington, and then the disease spread. By November of that year, about 800 died from the disease. That same month, the ship wrecked near the mouth of Bonnet's Creek. Morse and the crew made it safely to shore. In 1863, Morse piloted the Cornubia, which successfully made many trips between Wilmington and Bermuda of that year. In November of 1863, the Cornubia was chased by a U.S. Navy ship, and the crew beached and abandoned the ship 11 miles north of the new inlet. And then the final blockade runner Morse piloted was the Advance in 1864. The Advance was a fast ship for its time, but it did not move well through shallow water. And overall, Morse made a total of 55 successful runs in all of the 3 ships he piloted.
Alex, thank you very much. That was great. We can see why you were, and hear why you were an award-winning, you won that award with your documentary. Thanks so much. I promised I would, these are the items in the exhibit that were personal items of C.C. Morse. The first one is a large family Bible. They were very, very popular in the mid 1800s. C.C. Morse purchased this Bible in 1863 while he was in London, and he noted that on the in one of the inside pages in the Bible. The item to the right is an Octan, and it was used for navigational purposes in the mid 1800s, early and mid 1800s. This one was donated to the society by Cheryl and William McKenney of Wilmington, and it's really a beautiful item. The arms are brass, and the markings are ivory or onyx. Right? At the bottom on the shelf, and I apologize, it's very hard to see. You can see that the item in the front is a sword, and the sheath for that sword is sitting behind it. And then in the back at the bottom, almost really difficult to see, is the spyglass. These were items used by C.C. Morse in his position as a river pilot. You might say that looks more like a cavalry sword than a naval sword. I would suspect that you used what was available to you at that time. Next exhibit. This is an exhibit. It's one of the premier exhibits in the museum, and it's going to be one. I'm going to mention some others that really we might want to start talking and thinking about a part 2 to this tour, because I really can't do justice to it. It was created by Lisa Anderson and friends, and Lisa couldn't make it today. On the way, Lisa was helped by just a number of local contributors who told Lisa their stories and helped her understand the Brunswick County training school in different parts of growing up in Southport. Say the fierce desire for education prevails, and the accomplishments that the folks that represented in this exhibit are just fantastic, and a real tribute to their parents and to their teachers, and really to the students themselves. So again, I'd like to see us at another time spend time in detail going through this exhibit. This is an exhibit we have to honor our veterans. The artifacts in the exhibit range from World War I, and you can see the World War I uniform there, to today. Our friends Trudy Young and her daughter Catherine Huffam have donated many wonderful artifacts to the Society. And in this exhibit, they provided the service flag that you can see at the back of the picture, and the memory purse in the front. These were items that the family used to honor John Harrelson, who was Miss Trudy's uncle. John Harrelson was an immigrant from Norway, living here in Southport when the war started, and he was married at that time. So he was an enlisted man in the army, and served his time in France. Later in life, he was a pogie boat captain, and also he served as mayor of Southport for 14 years, which included the time during the Depression and World War II. In the picture, you can see the service flag, and below it, the memory purse. The service flag indicates that you had a loved one in service at that time, and often they were posted in front windows of the houses. The memory purse is really, this is the only one I've ever seen. It was made of silk, and it was all handmade, and there's a variety of themes and colors, and as I understood, this would have been made in Europe, and Harrelson would have purchased it and brought it back to give to a loved one. So it's a memory piece. The next exhibit I want to talk about is the 4th of July exhibit that we have, and I like to think of this exhibit as the official exhibit of the North Carolina official 4th of July celebration. There's a number of celebration mementos in the display cabinet, including the program for the play Revolution, which was produced by our friend Lou Hardy, and it was performed at Franklin Square on the 4th of July celebration in 1976. Also, there's a souvenir license plate, and annual keepsake medallions, keychains, and of course the crown. Now, you cannot hardly see the crown in that picture, so let me show you this picture. This is a crown that the Southport JCs produced the Miss 4th of July pageant. And the first pageant was in July 1st, 1967. And 10 local girls aged 17 to 22 competed in the swimsuit and competed in the pageant. And Kathy Joyner, and help me, Mary Ellen, I think it's Kathy Joyner Walton of Southport, was crowned the first Miss 4th of July. The crown, the distinctive red, white, and blue crown, was created in 1969, and in 1969, worn by the young lady in the picture, Cheryl Sue Johnston, and then worn by pageant winners through the life of the pageant, which ended in the early 1990s. These photographs are not in the exhibit. They're not yet in the exhibit. They were recently donated to the Society by Arthur Ferguson from Carthage, North Carolina. Mr. Ferguson provided us with 100 photos taken in 1921 and 1922 by his father, Arthur Red Ferguson, who you see pictured there. His father was stationed at Fort Caswell. Most of the photographs are of Fort Caswell, but the ones here are taken at the July 4th parade in Southport. And they're marching on Moore Street, and you can really tell that the top right photograph, and you can see in the background the chapel of the cross. So what they are depicting, and interestingly, we know exactly what it's depicting because I mentioned the chronology earlier that Bill Reeves put together. Well, there's an entry that Bill Reeves put in of 1921, July 4th, and it reads, "Veterans of the war between the states, the Spanish-American War, and the World War participated in the splendid 4th of July celebration held at Southport. The celebration opened at 11:30 a.m. with a parade over the main streets of the city. It was headed by the Fort Caswell Band and a detachment of regular soldiers." That's the top left picture. That's the detachment of regular soldiers. Then came the veterans of three wars. Then the school children and the floats. Okay, so the top right picture is of the Civil War and Spanish-American War veterans of that in the parade in 1921. The bottom left photograph is the veterans of the Great War, what we would call the First World War, and the bottom right of the photographs are the local children who participated in the parade. The article goes on to say the observance was judged to be by far the most elaborate of its kind ever held in Southport. As a bit of a researcher, we all struggle to find and try to figure out what things are, and it's just so rewarding when two things come together and the facts match your interpretation of the picture. That will be coming soon. As I mentioned repeatedly, there's exhibits that we need to do a part two, and some of these are in this photograph here. The next room in the garrison is called the timeline room, and it's a good name because the timeline takes up 2/3 of the room. The room past that, the west end of the garrison, is the movie room, and that's an exceedingly popular location. And then the front rooms of the garrison have artifacts from Fort Johnston over the years, and that truly is a story all to itself as well. So I hope you'll come back and we can visit us again. This is the visitors store, and I wanted to show this picture because can you see the human artifact on the right-hand side waving to you? Well, that's our friend Chuck Smith, and Chuck is one of the volunteers who works the front desk of the visitors center. Chuck's usually there on Friday mornings, and I called Chuck an artifact because he's a descendant of General and Governor Benjamin Smith, and you know the original name of Southport was Smithville, named after Governor Benjamin Smith. So the next time you want to go into the garrison on a Friday morning, make sure you say hello to Chuck. I just wanted to note, as I mentioned, many of the displays are based on books. All of the books I've mentioned are, including in addition to these, the Chronology, are available in the Society's Society's online store. Kind of finishing off here, I want to remind you all that tomorrow there'll be another Southport's Colorful History program, and this tomorrow the focus will be on the old Smithville burying ground, and the discussion led by former Society President Pat Kirkman, and she promises to tell you learn where the bodies are buried and hear the tales of early men and women who lived in Southport. And then a week from now, we'll have a virtual tour of the old jail museum, and that tour will be led by Nancy Christensen, assisted by some of her jailers. I think they're jailers and not prisoners. So that's the tour for today. Thank you all for coming, and hope to see you soon in person at the City of Southport's 4th Johnston Museum and Visitor Center. And let me thank Juli and Tommy and Alex for your participation. Hope to see you soon. Take care and be safe.